the roller with some slip sheets over it, just to protect the blankets. And then, so let me see. I think you need to go like 2 more clicks down. So get down to that 6. Maybe we'll even. We might even be there. Is it getting too hard to turn?
It's getting tighter. Is it one more?
It's 1 more. Oh no, actually we're at the same point right now. So we might be good. Let me check. Okay, so the reason I'm setting up with blankets, you guys have been doing all your printing with blankets, right? So you'll see when I print my proof that I'm going to use for the counterproof, I use a Timpin. What I'm calling a Timpin, which is basically just a piece of illustration board. But because I don't, with my relief prints, you may notice looking at them, I use a fairly thin layer of ink, and I don't have like a deep embossment. So the Timpin is just a flat. It's just a flat printing surface, so it doesn't press into the grooves on the plate or the block like the blanket does. So I might want to go a little tighter. Let me center it with a roller. So the edge is right there, so I know it's centered into the roller. Let's or if we go to 0. That's getting pretty tight.
Yeah.
Are you still able to turn it, right?
Yeah. Should I go to 0?
Yeah, go to 0. And let's for good measure, let's go all the way to 15. Because I want pretty good. Now it feels pretty tight.
Yeah.
Okay, so as I said, I use the Timpin to print the proof, but I use blankets with the transfer because the blankets give more detail in the transfer. Because you can see, like, even though this is a counterproof, on my block, there's a lot of detail to it, right? So, and that's a function of the blankets. So now this is ready for the counterproof. And we have a pretty good, I can check the embossment. You can see the slip sheet got dented at the corner, so I can tell pretty good embossment there. So that'll make for a good transfer. I have a backing board. In this case, it's just a piece of plywood. And then I build like a fence in 2 directions that is roughly the thickness of my block. So I knew you guys were using linoleum. So I use it's basically a little over 1/8 of an inch, which is actually thinner than the linoleum. But the point is that it'll get the paper up to the height, close to the height of the block, right? So you won't have an error based on or difference in height between the template and the block, if that makes sense. And I can use this either since I've made this fence part, I just glued these strips. This is like door skin that I glued onto the backing board. So put wood glue on it, just put it under weight, no nails or anything. But here's the important part. I use this pin system, and if you looked at that one of Sarah's prints closely, you saw the holes in the margin. So the pins actually stick through the paper, and they index the paper for all the subsequent colors. So it's just a really accurate way of working because I don't have to line the paper up to anything. It just locks right into place, and it's super accurate. So I can, as I said, I can use it on the press, or I can just use it like next to the press, use it to line up the paper, and then transfer the block with the paper to the press, which I think that's what I'll do this time. But let me ink the block. So this press I set for printing with the tint pen, just a single thickness of this illustration board. That's what I'm using in place of blankets. So Katya rolled out our surface here. And I don't want to go too, I want enough ink where I'll have a, I'll have enough ink to do the counterproof, but I don't want to use a lot of ink because then it'll take forever to dry after I do the based on the format of my paper. And actually in this case I left a little extra margin on this side, so if I want to I can actually trim off those holes that the nails make. And then I use a 3-point registration system here. You guys have ever heard that term? Use that. So 3-point, it's pretty like universal method of registration, where you just index to one corner and then like along the longest side of the block. And the effective thing about that is that if you just index to that one corner and one side, then if you have if you're using multiple blocks, if there's a slight variation in size from block to block, it won't matter because you're just indexing to one edge. Does that make sense? So it won't throw it off if it's a tiny bit different. So I'll index my block, and I just, in this case, sometimes I'll like glue little pieces of wood there, or I'll even tack little pieces of wood down depending on the thickness of my block. In this case, I just built up a thick tape edge. So there's like a physical edge for it to index to. Again, so I don't have to like line it up by eye. It'll be pretty reliable. So, oops. No, it's gonna make a bad transfer. Don't do that. Okay, so I've set the pressure on this press for just the thickness of the liner cut. I didn't allow for the template. So I need to transfer the print from the template, in this case, to the press. So, and since the ink's wet, I just kind of rely on the adhesion of the ink to keep the paper from moving once I've registered it. Not really so when I do the counterproof, but you'll see it'll be something slightly different. So this is a sheet of newsprint for a slip sheet, so I don't get any ink bleed through the paper to my tin pen. And hopefully that's set with pressure. Working in a shop with a bunch of really finicky pictures, and I didn't want to ruin their blankets. But actually now I really like it. So it's making things a little simpler. And I can just put the template, I can just put the tin pin up there. So my pressure was a little light. And it's even possible that the cobalt dryer is setting up a little bit actually, but let's put this aside. And now I want to transfer it to the other log. So I'll use the same method. But there's a little step in between here, since in this case I'm going to transfer again from the template to the press, and I can't rely upon the adhesion of the ink because there's not a thick enough layer here. I'll show you a little. This is actually a little screen printer's trick for lining up photo positives on your print when you're setting up registration. But basically, I find a spot in the image area. Actually, I'll find a couple of spots. I'll do 3 spots. Cut these little triangles in the middle with the knife. You can do this over at that cutting mat. I'm just going to do it right in the template. Okay. You'll see why I did that in a minute. But, so now, let me just put down a scrap using newsprint so it doesn't offset on my template. Now, okay. So now I can line those holes up again. Right. So I printed the first layer now, I printed the print. Now I'm going to counterproof onto my second block. Does everybody get why I'm doing that? So it doesn't move. So now it won't move when I transfer it from the template to this press. So the tape's just doing what the ink was doing the first time, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. So again, I'll make sure I use split sheets. Just on the safe side. Again, this time I'm using blankets because the blankets just give a better, or more detailed impression for the transfer. And I set the pressure a little tighter than I probably would for printing because I want to get a good impression from that first proof. Barely feel that pressure.
I know it's a wonderful press. It's a wonderful.
So that's awesome. Really good detailed transfer. So depending on your image, that's going to be helpful. And I think what I'll do. So now I'm ready to mark this up.